can hear you. I think we are waiting for a couple of people.
Good day, all.
Hi, Tony.
Hello, everyone.
This is a test. Hi, Loa.
Hi,
everyone.
Tarek. Yeah, hi, everyone.
Okay, we are at 10:06. So on my time, 6 minutes after, and we have 16 attendees present. It's a good number. So, what are we expecting? Are we missing any of the core attendees that?
I'm missing Andy, and I'm missing Matthew, but I don't know about Matthew. I know that Nick is on vacation, so will not show up. But I don't know about Andy and Matthew. Stuart, do you have an idea?
Right. Okay. I've got a microphone. No, don't know about either of them. Andy was busy with something else on the chairs meeting, wasn't he? So
Yeah.
I don't know, and I haven't
Okay.
spoken to him. It is
Okay.
very much holiday season over here.
I am. So okay, let's go.
Okay, do you want to drive or
No, you're driving.
no? Okay, all right. So thanks everyone who's joined, and this is the M&A interim meeting. The first one we're having after IETF 117. This is a joint effort between the three working groups, and this is an official interim, so we have to flash the note well. If you have not got acquainted with it, please do so. And this slide shows some administrative useful links for anyone who cares about these calls. You will find the minutes available online as well as the recording and our MPLS working group wiki and so on. Today's agenda, we have a couple of items to go over. We will talk about beer with M&A, MPLS network actions, and beer over MPLS. Then we will give a chance for the draft M&A header solution draft, the authors to ask any clarification questions following the IETF 117 feedback that we got. And we will talk about future agenda items. But before going over second, the third, fourth item, I wanted to review the action items that we have outstanding. And lastly, we have the usual all other business. So if anyone wants to add or modify the agenda, please speak up. Loa, you
I don't
go
want
ahead.
to speak up on any other business. I just want to say that agenda item number 3 is not intended to be a discussion. It's just a chance for authors to ask clarification questions on what's been going on, what has happened on the mailing list regarding the M&A header draft.
Okay, that's true. It's a chance for the authors, right?
Yeah. And number 4 is just a reminder. So it's probably just about 30 seconds or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, let me jump into the action items that we're tracking. Let me flip my browser to that page. We do have an action item to track updating the documents, the working group documents that we're driving for M&A. Specifically, we have the requirements draft. During IETF 117, also Matthew, who's a co-author on that, raised a possibility of merge between the requirements and framework draft, but there was supposed to be a follow-up. It was not converged that this merge will happen. So it's a chance for the co-authors attending for the two drafts to update this action item. If I think Matthew is not here, but Anyone else? I think Tony was supposed to follow up with Matthew, Tony Lee. So do you have anything to say about that?
I have failed utterly.
No worries. Okay. All right. Is there a plan to attempt again?
I'd be happy to try again.
Okay, thank you. The second document
Eric.
that we want. Yes,
Eric,
please.
I'm in the queue.
Okay, I'm not looking, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you can't see. It's something odd with Meetek, with the sharing the slides. Can't see the people asking for to have be able to speak. I have one comment. Yeah, Tony and Matt, you should discuss this, but I'm not in favor of merging the two documents, and I haven't really heard anyone that is. So it might be that. And second, the requirements draft is actually past routing directory review, and I think we are ready to progress it in just a couple of days. I need to talk to Matthew first.
Right. Yep. So that's a good feedback, and I think it's a start for the discussion on that. We're not saying we will merge, but there were some nits or snippets that could be moved between the documents. So that's another alternative. Okay. And the second action item was against the solution draft, the MPLS. Sorry. The MPLS M&A header draft. During the IETF 117 sessions, and as well on the mailing list, we have good discussions about updating that draft with suggestions. I believe Joel had made a suggestion, and even in IETF 117 session, there was a concern about how do we handle same scope, adding actions within the same scope. So that's a action item I'm tracking, and if anyone has an update on it, please come to the mic. I can call out names as well. I mean, if Joel or even the authors, was the concern raised before address? Or
I have sent text to the list. There has been discussion. I am waiting for either the chairs to say incorporate the text or the authors to say there's a problem. There have been the objections that have been raised have been unrelated issues.
and that's exactly, I think that is okay for the update. I'm not looking for more than that. I think also that item 3 is related to this on the agenda, item 3 on the agenda, and the authors will get back. They promise to get back. So I will tag this as an update and move on. Okay.
So Tarek, I'm still on.
Yeah.
Raising my hand.
Okay.
So thank you, Joel. We appreciate the text. There is actually more than that. The next step. There are, and come back with some type of feedback, either saying yes, we will include this, or no, we can't because of, and then the working group will actually decide on it. So The target just now is that we hopefully can have a discussion on the M&A header document at the next meeting.
Okay. Okay. All right, and I think we can safely move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is the M&A with interactions with beer in the same packet. So today, Greg will talk about this, and I can present the slides for that myself. And let me see if I can give you a chance to flip slides, Greg.
Okay. So, okay,
Okay. Yeah, I'll do the flipping. Somehow okay, 1 second. Let me see if I can find you, Greg. Pass slide control. So you should have slide control, Greg.
Yeah, I see it. I think I see it. Okay, great. Thank you, Tarek, and thank you for joining this presentation. Okay, first, I'll give you the overview of how beer over MPLS looks like. And then there's some discussion I had with Tony and Jeffrey about post-tag data, MPLS network action combination with a beer over MPLS. So what is bit index explicit replication? It is a multicast technology. It works in a data plane, and it does not require creation of the per flow state in the transit nodes. So we can think of it as a source routing plus multicast, or multicast plus source routing, because the ingress node, the encapsulating node, determines based on routing control information or orchestrator input, their explicit destination for their packet to be replicated. And the beer domain consists of ingress router, beer forwarding index ingress router, BFRs, it's the transit nodes, and egress routers. So each router identified by BFR ID. And if we look at the beer header, so here we see, and that's what we will be talking for some time now. So BFR ID is identifier of their ingress router, and because that is uniquely associated with IP address, it gives the opportunity for routers that want to reach this root of their multicast distribution tree over IP network to map it back. Okay, so yeah, actually that should be okay. Let's look at the first 4 octets. Because the space for identifying destination addresses is limited, there might be a multiple forwarding tables, and each of the BFR routers it advertises one or more beer bit indexed forwarding tables, so that it will know how to map the bit string to. At the same time, this BIF ID occupies approximately 20 bits and is viewed as a beer MPLS label. So when we look at the beer header, it does include, as defined currently in beer architecture over MPLS, it does include the bottom of the stack LSE. That's important to note because we'll get to that later, because that was one of the ideas how to do PSD M&A with beer over MPLS. So that then it follows by their nibble, and the value is 5. So the version number currently is 0. So this gives their length, this field carries the length of their bit string and the entropy value. 2-bit OEM flag been discussed, and one of the proposals is to use for 2 flag alternate marking. That's being discussed by beer working group. So then Prota is explicitly identifies the payload type of the beer. And followed by their bit string, which is bit flags for destinations. Any questions? Okay. Okay, Tony. Yes.
So was there any consideration given to sticking this in the ISD header?
Okay. I think that would be a major rework, and there was something. Okay, in my exchange with Tony P. My interpretation was that there was some idea towards that, but the problem that I see would be that it will significantly impact, especially the bit string, because and we are giving the most significant bit.
Agreed, but you would also end up being able to drop some redundant fields such as entropy and TTL.
Yes, again, definitely it's something that could be discussed. Again, everything can be done, right? So whether it's a better solution, because I believe that Jeffrey has another solution how to do PSD M&A while keeping beer header outside, or at least most of the beer header outside of MPLS stack. Yes, Jeffrey.
I want to clarify that while this beer header includes the first 4 octaves, which includes a beer label here, a more logical view here is that the MPLS label is part of the MPLS layer, but the rest of the beer header is beer layer, and so we can think that MPLS label stack ends after the first 4 octet. And so if there is ISD in the MPLS label stack, is transparent to beer, and if there is PSD, then we need to worry about a legacy beer router that does not understand the PSD. I think that's where you are getting in the next slides. So
Yeah.
I'll stop here.
Yes, actually, I agree that ISD M&A is transparent to beer even now. The only question that we'll have is that, and that's again for future discussions with the beer working group and MPLS working group, is that my understanding that beer MPLS label, which is a first or bottom of the stack here, is expected in the current solution to be bottom of the stack. So whether it will remain to be requested as such, or that can be eased up and say that when the beer BFR finds the beer MPLS label, then it might followed by one or more link state elements, label stack elements. That to be seen. But what I wanted to present for now is the current state of the art. Laura, please.
So I have 2 points. 1 point of order. Can everyone that is not speaking actually mute themselves so we get rid of the noise? I think we see Stuart popping up now, but just mute yourself and everyone else also. The other one is the discussion on what I would call the beer label being bottom of stack. How do we take care of that? That must be a discussion between the 2 working groups, or at least maybe 3 working groups, because PELS would be involved also.
I think that's very reasonable. And again, if there is an agreement that a new evolved architecture of beer over MPLS is needed.
Okay, yeah.
Again, I consider myself to be a messenger. I don't say that there is a consensus that we need to have a solution to this. So clearly there is some oddity and there is some issues with using PSD over MNA over beer MPLS because of this expectation and requirement that bottom of the stack includes beer MPLS label and immediately followed by the rest of the beer header. So
Greg, yeah, that's actually where I was getting, because if you say bottom of stack, may be possible, but I think that the position immediately after the bottom of stack bit is actually taken by a couple of other applications that actually could collide. So I think what I want to say, and I agree with Tony, that if we actually find that we need to do something, that is a bit of extra work. But I think we should discuss it one way or another to see what we should do and see if we can live with the current beer architecture.
Yeah, I agree that already there are identified several options how to do it, and Jeffrey's proposal to first architecturally separate these first 4 octets that include BIFT ID or beer MPLS label from the rest of the header. So that will probably most likely require some work with the concern of being compatible with existing solutions. And then I agree that whether this label must be bottom of the stack, that's another question. And then probably trying to get to their more flexible solution.
So I have one further question. I don't know if you can answer it or someone from the beer working group can answer. But if the first label here is set to 5, so do you have any other context to decide that the 5 actually indicates beer, or are you relying only on the first nibble?
That's a good question. So these beer MPLS labels, they are local significance. So
I can try to answer Lord's question.
okay.
Good. Okay.
Yes, please. Thank you.
So then Nebo 5 is really there just to prevent someone doing the ECMP hashing, mistaking it as IP header.
Okay. If that's the purpose, then it's fine.
Right. The beer label itself will tell both the two things. One is that a beer header follows. The other one is that which particular beer forwarding table to use. So the label itself will explicitly tell that a beer header follows. Yeah.
I thought so. Thank you.
Another point I want to make is that the bottom of the stack assumption, I don't think that would change, but that's just my view here. But the real issue is that after the bottom of the stack label, what happens if you have a PSD, a block? And that is the real issue. Yeah. So please go ahead.
I agree with Jeffrey that, again, I believe that this is a solvable solution and how to do that. But again, it's something that will require work. Yes, Tarek, please.
Yeah, hi, Greg. I am the entropy field it attracted my attention, and I'm curious in MPLS. I presume this is an MPLS beer header. That's what my guess is. So we have entropy support in MPLS. So what's the interaction between this entropy and an entropy that can exist in the label stack? And if the entropy label that we support in MPLS is not there, is a transit router supposed to be parsing this entropy and doing hashing based on it?
Okay, I think that Jeffrey can help me here.
Okay, I will lower my hand. Jeffrey, go ahead.
Oh, I was talking muted. So the MPLS forwarding that gets the packet to this particular beer router will only look at the MPLS related labels or whatever. It does not look into in this entropy field. Now, after this router receives this packet, it will start beer for forwarding. And then the beer will only look at this entropy field in this beer header for its purpose. Yeah, that's totally independent of each other.
Yeah. So we can think of it similar to service function chaining. So service function forwarders may be interconnected with the MPLS network, but that will be LSPs that connect these entities. So similarly, BFRs might be interconnected with their MPLS network, and thus so that will be only MPLS tunnels that interconnect them. But it's not expected that transit LSR will look into the beer header and understand the entropy information in a beer. So it's like transport. Well, it's probably not the right word to say MPLS is a transport, but it's a in MPLS we have underlay network entropy, and in beer we have service entropy or overlay. Have I managed to make it confusing even more, or it's clear now?
I think the appetite is opening up, and maybe Tony is trying to speak.
So I typed something into the chat. Sorry, my mic is very slow picking up. I typed something in the chat explaining why beer entropy is basically has its own use. That should clarify it.
Okay, let me switch to the next slide. Okay, so what rules beer over MPLS wanted to highlight, as we talked about it, that last LSE expected to have beer MPLS label, which is at the same time identifies the forwarding table for the BFR. And next protocol, 6-bit, identifies the payload type. So, and some values that have been already assigned, you can see here in the slide. Okay, any questions to this slide? Yes, Laura.
Have we seen any implementation of the upstream assigned label?
Probably it's better to
Number
ask.
2.
It's probably better ask Tony, Jeffrey, and Ice. They are more familiar with the status of implementation deployment of beer.
Jeffrey's coming online.
You are talking about upstream assign label after the beer header.
Yeah.
That it is how it is expected to work for example MVPN or EVPN using beer as the provider tunnel for multicast traffic.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay, I will move to the next slide. Okay, is it not responding to me? Ah, okay, here we go. Okay, okay, so obviously because for top octets in beer header interpreted as bottom of the stack label stack element, post-stack M&A cannot precede beer MPLS header. So yes, G. Hi, G. You have a question?
You hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, very faintly. If you can speak up louder or get closer to the mic.
How about now?
Yes, better.
Okay. So I think I just chat with Tony P in the chat window. I think the current beer MPLS encapsulation was designed before we have M&A, right? So we may consider that beer is following the MPLS layer. It's another upper layer of the MPLS layer. But when we consider M&A is introduced in the future network, M&A is part of the MPLS layer, right? So we may also introduce the encapsulation of beer following the MPLS layer, which include an M&A, so that in my understanding, that is can be, we may call it like a beer over MPLS M&A. So that limitation is based on the existing MPLS encapsulation. It does not consider the existence of the M&A, right? So that is something maybe doable in the future.
I see it a little bit differently. Earlier there was a note and discussion that for Instack data M&A, because that applies to MPLS stack entirely, it's transparent to beer. So if effectively it works on an underlay network. So the only concern or issues that we see now is that post-stack data M&A. So I would not say that introduction of M&A in MPLS in general requires work with a beer over MPLS. It's only if there is a need to use post-stack data M&A, then something needs to be done.
Actually, I have some different opinion about whether ISD will introduce some changes to the beer, or whether there's something we need to consider further. Maybe we can discuss it. The ISD part also. For this, I see in your slides only the PSD with beer is analyzed, right?
Right, because when I looked at it, in my opinion, ISD M&A is not required to be bottom of the stack. So in that case, so if the BFR is capable of supporting ISD M&A, then NAS can precede the beer header that starts with the bottom of the stack label stack element. So I might be missed something, but I have not seen then there will be an issue with beer over MPLS header and ISD M&A.
Yeah, actually, if you consider the beer label to be the bottom of the stack, it means that M&A will precede the beer label, right? Which means that okay, in that case, when the packet arrive at the first beer node, all the M&A in the ISD will be popped, right? Then we cannot convey this M&A in ISD further to the downstream nodes.
Correct. Yeah, I concur with Greg. It's basically MPLS processing until you hit the beer label and you do beer processing. And if the underlay preserves the ISD and builds a new stack and puts beer on top for the next guy, nothing prevents you from doing that. So the only real issue that we kind of saw here is that the PSD after the beer label, right? Because the beer is right now the bottom stack. And there's a couple of solution proposals. I also typed something in the chat while we're talking here.
Yeah, but I may have a different opinion here. If you want to continue to carry this SD information further after the first beer node, it means that you need to pop it, then swap the beer label, then push another M&A ISD.
Well, you need to do that again. We need to understand that this is a multicast. So again, in each underlay will have a different labels. So the label stack on each replicated packet would not be the same, right? So that's why reconstructing their underlay encapsulation for each replicated packet
Right.
to me seems logical.
That means you need to push the label stack for the next LSP or the tunnel to the next beer node, right? But whether you still need to encap the previous ISD, it's something not apparent operation to me. It's something maybe need a special operation.
Again,
This is
how,
not something related to the next LSP to the next beer node. It's something you already popped.
okay, if somebody doesn't like doing beer, they may not do beer. Okay, that's.
I'm not talking about the beer operation, just how to encap the already popped ISD into the next label stack.
We don't do that. Here, MPLS is just a way to get a beer packet from one beer router to another beer router. In fact, if the two beer routers are directly connected, we only use one beer label in the label stack, and the only purpose of that beer label is to indicate that the beer header follows and which beer forwarding table to use. If the one beer router needs to tunnel to another beer router, a beer packet, then MPLS tunnel may be used. But in all the cases, between the beer routers, MPLS is just a transport mechanism. We don't carry the MPLS information from one beer router to another beer router. So the ISD data and PSD, they all terminates at this beer router itself. We do not propagate it further.
Actually, maybe you mentioned another possible issue with ISD. If you say that the beer nodes are directly adjacent to each other, then you will only allow one beer label in the MPLS label stack. Then how can you add ISD in this case?
Again,
yes, you don't.
There will be one
need for ISD at all.
You don't need ISD in this case.
No, the type of the connection does not has any consequences on the label stack. So you have one transport label, but it could be segment routed MPLS, right? So again, we need to separate underlay MPLS network from beer overlay.
Guys, can you hear me?
Yes, Ice, please.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I think G's point here is that if you put an instack M&A label in place in top of in the same beer stack with beer, and you want to carry it across end to end, right? Then each time you push and pop the beer label, you have to remember that label and put it again on the stack. So it's a bit inconvenient that you have to sort of deal with that inside of the beer forwarding. You need to remember that context. Maybe that's the point G's trying to make.
No,
Right,
I think
right.
that I understand, but that's why early in our discussion, I used the analogy of service function chaining. So in the service function chaining, we have service function forwarders, and they are interconnected with the underlay. So, but these tunnels that are interconnect service function forwarders, they are terminated between these two entities. So similar with the BFR. BFR, they're interconnected with the underlay network. So for beer domain, as I understand it, there is no notion end-to-end underlay, because they may be interconnected by MPLS and IP tunnels. It's not necessarily will be all MPLS. So for that, to say that I want to have my ISD MNA to traverse end to end, it might not happen because that will be a different underlay networks. Even more so, there could be that we have an islands of beer. They're interconnected by underlay tunnel that connect one island with another. So there might be different scenarios, and that's why I think that the requirement that if ingress BFR sets ISD MNA, then it will be automatically replicated everywhere. So yes, if that is possible and that's desirable, that needs some additional intelligence on BFRs.
Right. I'd like to jump in and add one analogy here. MPLS to beer is like Ethernet to MPLS. You don't carry a Ethernet related information from one LSR to another. Here is the same thing.
Yeah, and I agree with Jeffrey. That's a very good analogy as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think one of the purpose of the MNA is, for example, to carry a slice ID across, right, through the MPLS network. That would not work here.
Well, again, it does not work out of box. So if we want to do some information preserved between systems, so we need to do something. Again, I probably will go back to this service function chaining analogy, because what we're chaining is not only forwarders, but the forwarder has service function. So something that performs certain processing on a payload. But it's expected that service function will hold some information that is needed to continue on the service function chain, because it has some information that is will be used to identify where the next service function may be located as it mapped to the service function forwarder. So if we want to have this network slice identifier as a dedicated identifier being traversing the whole beer domain, then it needs some additional instrumentation on the system.
Or maybe another thing, and we're probably digressing a bit, but if you do it post stack, it's probably easier to sort of keep it.
Possibly.
Yeah, that is one difference between the ISD and PSD. PSD can be preserved, even if the label stack is popped.
But that's something that we need to discuss further, because again, as been mentioned by Tony P and Jeffrey, there are several ideas on how to do how MPLS PSD can work with the beer, but that will require some discussions and considerations. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, can we
Actually,
move further, G?
Yeah,
Because
just a quick summary.
I think that
just want to mention that we may not just consider the beer MPLS with PSD. The solution with ISD also needs some further analysis, right? Thanks.
okay, I disagree, but okay. Well, please.
Because you don't have this in the slides, and we have already pointed out several possible issues for discussion or for consideration. Okay.
I don't see issues here.
We need to document this maybe either in the slides or somewhere else.
Again, I don't see issues here. For the underlay, there is no issues. Laura, please.
I have. It would be good if someone can actually look at how the labels are handled by different nodes in different cases. It's kind of a tricky job, but it would be good if it could be done. I have two other things. That the thing where you actually pop one label, keep it somewhere, and then pop it back again on the label stack, that has been discussed at least 2 times in the MPLS working group and been reacted both times. So I don't think that will work. The other one is that we had about a year ago a discussion on if I think the starting point in that discussion was that there were more than one specification that said that this service header needs to be immediately after the bottom of stack, and this is the third one. So, and I think that was related to pseudo wire. So maybe Stuart or Matthew can try to figure out how we solved it at that time. I don't remember. Thanks.
Tarek, please.
Okay. Hi, Greg. I want to look at this a little bit differently. Rather than retrofitting beer to M&A, I want to state, to me, beer is a replication action at a specific LSR, at least in the MPLS network. So it's an action to do replication at that LSR, and M&A advertises itself as a mechanism to invoke one or more actions at one or more LSRs. So rather than retrofitting, can we state that beer is an action, an M&A action in specific? What do you think?
Okay, let's get to discussion of some proposals that we identified before this meeting when talking with Jeffrey and Tony P, because that might be something that you're proposing, or at least one of ideas might be.
Greg, can I
Yes.
quickly answer to Tarek's question?
Of course.
Yeah. So, Tarek, you mentioned LSR. I would say LER. And you talk about the beer as action. I think we really should stick to the fact that the beer is the a payload of MPLS here. But we can discuss further later. But here are just some 2 quick comments here.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get back to Greg.
Yeah, actually, I think that Jeffrey's point is very much helpful, because indeed BFR is egress router or edge router.
If you allow me just to respond quickly. So to me, you know, LER, LSR is not the core of the discussion. I mean, to me, if you're doing transport, multicast transport, and you know, you will do replication at multiple nodes, or call them whatever you want. And you know, if you're going over MPLS, I would like to do this, you know, action at select nodes. So the question is, can MNA invoke these actions? Thank you.
We can discuss that further separately. Yeah.
So, Jeffrey, a question. Are you saying that every node that actually do the replication, is that terminating the incoming LSP? And in effect is an LER?
Correct.
Okay, so then I'm kind of doubtful whether you want to have M&A for that. Well, maybe you want to, but it would be very rare to have M&A for that LSP. It's just one hop, and you might want to do some OAM, but I think you can do that on the beer directly.
That's exactly correct. In the one hop case, there is no issue. We can handle everything in beer itself. It's the situation where you have the tunnel beer packet from one beer router to another beer router, then we may run into issues. In fact, before this meeting, I sent out the email in reply to Greg's email, listed some of the thoughts that I had. I guess after this meeting, if people can read that email and then see if those make sense or not. But for now, we can continue with Greg's flow.
Okay, Lo, you have your hand raised.
Okay, sorry.
No, I'm just curious. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to the next slide. And I think that I try to capture some ideas that we exchanged before the meeting. So one was that for post-tech M&A in beer is to present post-tech M&A as part of the beer payload. So then using define the protocol ID for post-tech M&A block that probably would follow then after the beer header, but that will require that post-tech encapsulation will have the protocol, next protocol field, and then use the same registry as defined for beer next protocol identifier registry. And again, that's only a proposal. It's not something that being done. So another is, I think that was from Tony P, not to set S-bit in a beer MPLS LSE, and then define a new version of beer header. But I believe that will require more discussions, as well as Jeffrey proposal that will look at beer MPLS label stack element and the remaining of beer header as two separate entities. So thus, there might be a post-tag data M&A in between. So I think that we have at least 3 proposals on the table for discussion. Yes, Gene.
Yeah, for the option 1, I think this is something, if we put the M&A inside the beer header, that will be something specific to beer. It will not be called the MPLS network actions.
No, no, it's not putting M&A in beer header. It's putting M&A after beer header. And that's why it's important to have a distinct protocol identifier. So it's not part of beer header. So beer header is a fixed size that, well, not fixed size, but the size is determined by bit string. But then what this option proposes is that their proto field in the beer header identifies that the beer header is followed by post-tag data.
But that may
and then post-tag data,
and
then post-tag data has an optional has a field that might identify their payload.
But in that case, that may sorry, maybe some delay on my side.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. With
go
that,
ahead.
yeah, with that encapsulation, I think this may change the hierarchy between the MPLS M&A and the beer. We consider beer as an upper layer of MPLS, and M&A is the part of the MPLS layer, right? If we put something after the beer header, that will be either beer specific or the upper layer specific functionality, and it's not a generic MPLS functionality.
I agree.
So
it does put it on beer level, and that will be all replicated. And we need to understand the consequences of this and see if that's what we want. I agree. It's again, this is not all ironed out solution. It's just one of the mechanisms that I thought of. But yes, you are correct. There are some implications we need to understand if that's implications we are comfortable with, and that's what we really want. But on another hand, what it gives this that these actions would be applied on overlay, not on each individual. So basically at all LERs of MPLS underlay.
okay. So, but for option 2, do you mean the beer label can be not located at the bottom stack? Then following the bottom stack, there will be a M&A, or it's still a beer header?
I think it's a good question. So yeah, I think that's a good question. So again, it might become a little bit more trickier because again, the requirement would be that this beer MPLS label will be at their top at their intended BFR. So whether we can safely remove bottom of the stack indication, that will again have some issues with their existing implementations, deployed implementations, or how that can be addressed. So again, each option, as I understand, will have some significant discussion and consideration required before it becomes a solution.
Yes, and for me, maybe another option is to have the M&A first and then the beer header follows. In that case, we use some other indicators in the M&A to indicate the existence of the beer header. That is, we can call it beer over MPLS M&A encapsulation, which is slightly different from the current beer over MPLS. Yeah.
I think that would be along the suggestion from by Jeffrey that would separate beer MPLS label stack element from the bit string portion of the beer header. So again,
actually, in that case, maybe the beer label will not be required because we don't need an indicator in the label stack. Just we need some indicator in the M&A.
Beer MPLS label is required because it identifies the forwarding table to be used how to resolve the bit string. So it is required. This must be present for the BFR to identify how to do processing of the bit string.
Okay, maybe we can discuss this further offline.
Jeffrey,
please. Yeah, indeed, we need to discuss these options further. Jay already spoke about this, my comments about option 1, that beer is no longer the MPLS payloads if we do option 1. Mm-hmm. And option 2 is not exactly clear to me how it is done, but both option 1 and option 2, I don't think they handle the situation where you have 2 legacy beer forwarding router following the old practice, and then the BFR beer router 1 tunnel the packet to beer router 2, and then some transit LSR puts a PSD MNA, and then the BFR2 will be screwed. So I think we have issues with for both option 1 and option 2 in that case. Option 3, which is not on the slide, but as Jay mentioned and Greg mentioned, where we put the PSDMA between the beer label and the rest of beer header, that one works well, except we need to make sure that we don't send a legacy beer router or a packet with that PSDM MNA between the beer label and the rest of beer header. And I have some thoughts on how that can be done, and that actually that may need to be done for non-beer situation anyway. And I have some thoughts written down in the email I mentioned earlier. So we can follow up for further.
Yeah, Jeffrey, if that's okay, I will forward this email to MPLS working group, so then we keep beer and MPLS groups together.
Yeah, that is already to both lists. We
okay.
had some offline discussions, and later on, I realized the real issue here is the backwards compatibility. And so before the meeting, I summarized that on that point. So we can follow up on that further. Yeah.
Noah, please.
So for clarification again, option 2, if you say that the beer MPLS LLC don't have the SBIT set, it means that it's not the last label in the label stack. Then it needs to be followed with something with the SBIT set, right? And that means that we are giving up the requirement that the beer MPLS LLC must be the last label in the stack. Did I understand it correct?
My understanding was that envisions that beer MPLS label stack element can be anywhere as long as at the top for their BFR. And I would say at this time that is something that we can discuss. To me, again, everything is possible. How much it will cost, how difficult it will be, what it gives us. Do we need this flexibility? I believe that's something.
Greg, could you hear me? Okay, yeah, sorry. So I was talking about the option 2.1, right? So isn't it this optional, I mean, the S-bit set mandatory thing is even applicable for ISD M&A, so that we can place our ISD M&A anywhere the stack?
In a reworked beer over MPLS architecture, then it gives us more flexibility. But I envision that it would not come for free. And as Jeffrey pointed out, and I think that's what we agree, is there are already implementations and deployments of beer over MPLS. How the new solution interworks and doesn't break the existing deployments.
Okay.
So
yeah, thanks.
because we can consider, as pointed out, that we are creating a new beer header version. So how these two coexist?
The second option would be pretty much hard revision of beer, as far as I see. We're violating directly the current, proposed standard RFCs if we don't set the S. The first option is more subtle because we do not prescribe, which protocols beer silicon has to support. So if you add a new protocol, then detecting the incompatibility will be more subtle. We basically have to stick more signaling into IGB to show who actually understands, these PS M&A stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. Again, to me, it's all about compromise. So we want to do something. Let's see how difficult or easy that could be. So that's how we'll compare these solutions. Eyes, please.
Yeah, just probably to repeat what Tony was saying. So in the beer specifications, we've not specified not setting the S-bit, right? So implementations just probably assume S-bit is set and will just index immediately to the post-stack data for beer. I would be highly surprised if implementations would deal with situations where the S-bit is not set. So I would think that we're going to invalidate, a lot of the implementations that are out there, we're going to invalidate them. So I would say this is probably a very costly option.
Oh,
and I would say
I mean,
the least preferred one. Yeah.
The not setting S-bit is direct violation of the published RFCs.
Yeah.
So if somebody who does not set the S and not checks the S, they are pretty much violating, today's, proposed standard. So the option 2 is really revving up beer version completely. No discussion there.
Yeah, just one thought that might be shut down pretty quickly, but could we ask a question if we actually need M&A for LSP that has a beer MPLS LSE? Is it really necessary? Yeah, I'm asking it because I want to understand if it's necessary.
Well, I didn't see a concrete use case for any of that stuff yet. So from my side, it's basically walking architectural possibilities without understanding how they will be used, what it will be used for anyway.
Yep.
I mean, the slice ID, I buy that, but that looks to me like an ISD and not the beer PSD.
Okay, well, very good discussion. Thank you. Let's move. I don't think that I have much more. Yeah, okay, so that's just a rendering of option 1, which I think that easy to understand now. So basically what it shows that it has post-stack M&A identifier, and then post-stack M&A header includes some proto field that identifies the payload which follows. Okay. So that's all. Jeffrey, please.
So indeed, at this time, this is basically a theoretical exercise on what if we have PSD M&A and it appears in a beer packet. What do we do? Exact use case we don't know yet. But if somehow that becomes possible, then we need to figure out how to do handle the issues. And we talked about 3 options, and I think we do need more discussions. And then again, please, if you're interested in this topic, to check out the email I sent out earlier today.
Yes, thank you, Jeffrey. And I agree with you that that's what I try to present, that the current state of art, and then that if and when there is a need to do post-stack data M&A, then there's certain, some significant work and discussion have to happen for the beer specifics. Okay, so that's all I have, and I will try to I'll close the deck and I will turn off my mic.
Okay, thank you, Greg. All right, you mentioned stay tuned to the discussion on the mailing list. So there are good ideas here to follow up on. And let me go back to the agenda. And before that, I see that Loa wants to speak. Let me give him a chance. Go ahead, Loa.
Thank you. I think there are some action items on. I got a bad echo somewhere. Some actions that the chairs need to discuss and see if how we should organize the upcoming discussion. But we can do that among ourselves, I think.
Yeah, definitely. We can review the feedback from today and work on it. If you think there's an explicit action item, and anyone thinks that we should be tracking an action item, let me know and I'll add it to our list. Otherwise, the next item on our agenda today is the MPLS M&A header solution draft, and a chance for the authors to ask for any clarifications on previous comments that were raised. So anyone from the attendees of the authors of that draft, please hold the mic and if you have anything to add. Otherwise, we can move on. Okay, I don't see anyone coming to the showing raising their hand in the queue. I presume you heard me and you don't have anything to clarify. So I'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is future agenda items for future interims. So that's a reminder that we collect items for upcoming interims, and if there are no discussion points, then the interim will be canceled. Loa, you're trying to say something. Go ahead.
Please tell the chairs. It's true what Tarek said, that if we don't have agenda, we cancel. So there might be space for discussion. So please let us know if there is anything you want to discuss. Thanks.
Okay, with this, we come to the end of the agenda of today. And if nobody else wants to say anything, we can conclude today and look forward to the next upcoming interim. Okay, thank you so much for attending today. It was a useful and good discussion. Greg, are you planning to say something?
No, I'm just reiterating your and Jeffrey call for continued discussion on the mailing list using Jeffrey.
Yep, using Jeffrey's email thread. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I will log off. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, guys.